The fork clattered against the china plate like a gunshot in the tense silence of the Easter dining room, shattering the fragile piece of honey-glazed ham and deviled eggs. "I'm gay," Alex blurted, his voice cracking under the weight of 16 years of buried secrets, the words tasting like ash on his tongue as his mother's eyes widened in horror. In that instant, the world he knew splintered, his father's chair scraping back, the Bible thumping shut on the side table, and the unspoken verdict hanging heavier than the scent of overbaked pecan pie. "You don't belong here anymore." Alex Rivers had always been the golden boy of Elmwood, Ohio, the one who mowed the neighbors' lawns without asking, aced algebra without trying, and flashed that dimpled smile that made the church ladies coo about his future wife. Elmwood was the kind of small town where front porches sagged under the weight of American flags and Friday night lights, where everyone knew your business before you did, and secrets were like weeds in the cracks of the sidewalk. Inevitable, but best stamped out quick. The Rivers family fit right in, Dad. A stern auto mechanic with grease-stained hands and a temper forged in Vietnam flashbacks. Mom, a part-time librarian who quoted psalms like recipes, and Sarah, Alex's older sister, the straight-A prom queen who was already planning her wedding to the quarterback. That Easter Sunday in 2007 started like any other, the sun slanting through the lace curtains of their split-level ranch house on Maple Street, the air thick with the sizzle of bacon and the low hum of hymns on the radio. Alex, home from his first semester at Ohio State, felt the knot in his stomach tighten with every amen at the breakfast table. He'd rehearsed the words in his dorm room mirror 100 times, practicing the casual lilt he imagined straight guys used for confessions like this. But as the family gathered around the oak table for the big meal, turkey this year, because Dad insisted on bucking tradition just enough to feel modern, the pressure built like a storm front rolling in from Lake Erie. They'd just finished the grace, heads bowed, when Sarah nudged him under the table, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Hey, squirt, pass the rolls, and spill. Any girls catching your eye up in Columbus?" The room chuckled, expectant, and Alex's heart slammed against his ribs. He could picture it. The nod of approval, the backslaps, the way Mom would start knitting booties for grandbabies that would never come. Instead, the truth clawed its way out, raw and unfiltered. "I'm not into girls, Sarah. I'm gay." The words landed like a brick through the bay window, splintering the crystal pitcher of sweet tea. Mom's fork froze midway to her mouth, a pearl of gravy trembling on its tine. Dad's face darkened, veins bulging in his neck like the roots of an old oak. Sarah blinked, her laughter dying in her throat, replaced by a gasp that echoed off the floral wallpaper. "What did you say?" Dad's voice was low, a rumble like the engine of his old Ford pickup, but laced with something sharper, disgust, maybe, or the fear of what the deacons at First Baptist would whisper come Sunday. Alex swallowed hard, forcing himself to meet those steel-gray eyes. "I said I'm gay. That is who I am. I've known for years." The room spun into chaos then, a whirlwind of accusations and Bible verses hurled like thunderbolts. Mom clutched her necklace, whispering prayers under her breath as if exorcising a demon. "This is a phase, Alex. College does that, bad influences, that godless campus." Sarah reached for his hand, but Dad slapped it away. "Don't you dare encourage this filth in my house." The dessert plates were cleared without a word, the pecan pie sliced and served in mechanical silence, each bite a countdown to exile. As the last crumb was scraped away, Dad stood, towering over the table like a judge in a black robe. "We've given you everything, son. A roof, food, values. And this is how you repay us? By dragging sin into our home on the Lord's Day." His voice broke on the last word. Not with sorrow, but with the finality of a gavel. Pack your bag. You're out. Don't come back until you've fixed this abomination. Alex's bags were in the trunk of his beat-up Civic before the streetlights flickered on, the Easter Bunny chocolate melting in the glove compartment like a cruel joke. He drove west on I-70, the flat Ohio farmland blurring into tears, until the skyline of Columbus swallowed him whole. The city lights felt like distant stars, cold and indifferent, but they were better than the void of Maple Street. Those first months were a blur of ramen noodles and night shifts at a campus coffee shop, where the steam from espresso machines masked the salt of his sobs in the back alley. Ohio State was a beast of its own. Frat parties thumping with bass that drowned out doubt, lecture halls packed with faces that blurred into anonymity. Alex threw himself into architecture classes, sketching blueprints for buildings that stood tall and unyielding, much like the walls he was building around his heart. But the ache for home gnawed at him, a phantom limb that throbbed in the quiet hours. He found solace in the Queer Alliance meetings in the student union, a dingy basement room with rainbow flags drooping like weary soldiers. There, amid the circle of folding chairs and shared stories of rejection, he met Jamie. Jamie Hargrove was everything Alex wasn't. Bold, with a mop of blonde curls that caught the fluorescent light like a halo, and a laugh that cut through the gloom like sunlight on snow. A theater major from Cincinnati, Jamie had come out at 14 and turned it into armor, quoting Whitman and Wilde like weapons against the world's indifference. Their first real conversation happened over lukewarm pizza after a meeting, the kind with toppings that slid off like half-hearted apologies. "So, what's your damage, newbie?" Jamie asked, wiping sauce from his chin with the back of his hand. Alex hesitated, the words sticking like tar, but Jamie's green eyes, sharp and kind, pulled them free. He spilled it all. The Easter fork, the slammed door, the miles of highway between him and forgiveness. Jamie listened without flinching, then slid a slice toward him. "Families like pizza, man. Sometimes it's loaded with crap you didn't order, but you gotta pick off the bad bits and savor what's left. Or hell, make your own pie." It was the first time in weeks Alex laughed, a rusty sound that surprised them both. From there, it snowballed late-night study sessions in Jamie's off-campus apartment, where scripts mingled with blueprints on the coffee table. Walks along the Scioto River, hands brushing accidentally on purpose. A first kiss under the buckeye tree on campus, tentative and tasting of cherry chapstick and possibility. Love, Alex discovered, was a quiet revolution. It started with Jamie's hand in his during a midnight screening of Brokeback Mountain at the Art House Theater, the screen's glow illuminating the tears they didn't bother hiding. It deepened in the stolen weekends when Jamie dragged him to pride parades in Cleveland, where the air thrummed with drums and glitter, and Alex felt, for the first time, like he belonged to something bigger than Elmwood's narrow streets. But love also brought shadows. Jamie's ex, a brooding painter named Riley who lurked in the periphery, sending texts that Jamie swore were just friendly check-ins. Alex trusted him, or tried to, burying the jealousy under layers of gratitude for this boy who saw his scars and called them stars. By junior year, they were inseparable, sharing a cramped studio above a laundromat that smelled faintly of dryer sheets and dreams. Alex's grades soared. His portfolio brimmed with designs for sustainable community centers, visions of spaces where outcasts could find refuge. Jamie landed a lead in the university's production of Angels in America, his Tony Kushner monologues echoing off the brick walls at 2 a.m., fueling Alex's sketches of ethereal stages. They talked of futures, New York for Jamie's acting, Chicago for Alex's firm, but always together, like two halves of a blueprint. Then came the call from Sarah, a crackle of static on a rainy Tuesday in October. "Alex, It's me. Mom's. She's not well. The cancer came back. Stage 4. The words hit like a derailment, twisting everything. He hadn't spoken to his parents in 3 years, not since a stiff Christmas card arrived with a check he tore up. But blood was blood, thicker than the distance he'd put between them. Jamie squeezed his shoulder as Alex booked the flight. Go. Heal what you can. I'll be here. The drive back to Elmwood was a time warp. Billboards for the same diners, the same rusted silos leaning like old men. The house on Maple Street looked smaller, shrunken by memory, the porch light buzzing like a trapped fly. Sarah met him at the door, her once vibrant curls now limp, eyes red-rimmed. He doesn't know you're coming. Thought it'd be better this way. Inside, the air was stale with hospital jello and unspoken regrets. Mom lay in the living room hospital bed, frail as tissue paper, her Bible open to Psalms on the nightstand. Dad hovered in the kitchen, back turned, the clink of beer bottles his only greeting. Alex, Mom whispered when she saw him, her hand trembling as she reached out. My boy. Forgive me. The words unlocked something in him, a flood of bitterness and ache he'd dammed up for years. He sat by her side, holding that paper-thin hand, recounting the life he'd built, the degree, the internship at a Columbus firm, Jamie's off-Broadway callback. She smiled weakly, tears tracing paths down her cheeks. You sound happy. That's all a mother wants. Dad lingered in the doorway, silent as stone, but Alex caught the flicker in his eyes. Regret, perhaps, or the ghost of pride. Sarah pulled him aside later, in the backyard where the swing set still creaked. He's tried, you know. After you left, he tore up that pamphlet on reparative therapy, said it was hogwash. But pride, it's a hard swallow for him. Alex nodded, the old wounds itching, but the anger had softened to something manageable, like scar tissue over a burn. Mom passed 2 weeks later, on a crisp November morning, the leaves outside the window a blaze of red and gold. The funeral was a blur of casseroles and condolences, the church pews packed with faces from a life Alex had outgrown. Dad shook his hand afterward, grip firm but eyes averted. Proud of you, son, for stepping up. It wasn't absolution, but it was a start, a fragile bridge over the chasm. Back in Columbus, Jamie enveloped him in hugs that smelled of patchouli and plot twists. You're my hero, he murmured, and Alex believed it, for a while. But the shadows lengthened. Riley reappeared, just for a collab on Jamie's senior showcase, his dark eyes lingering too long, his laugh too easy. Alex buried himself in work, landing a junior position at Hargrove Architects in Chicago. Ironic. Given the name, but a sign, he joked. Jamie promised to follow after graduation. Theater's portable. Babe, we'll conquer the Windy City. Graduation came in a whirlwind of caps and gowns. Jamie's diploma clutched like a talisman. That night, over cheap champagne on the apartment floor, he proposed not with a ring, but with a dog-eared script of their own, Rivers and Roads, a two-man play about love's detours. Marry me? Jamie asked, on one knee amid pizza boxes. Alex said yes, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of forever. Chicago welcomed them with brutal winds and boundless sky, the Loop's skyscrapers a canvas for Alex's ambitions. He rose quickly, his designs for eco-friendly lofts earning nods from the brass. Jamie auditioned relentlessly, waitering at a dive bar to pay the rent on their Lakeview walk-up. Their life was a rhythm of takeout Thai and rooftop stargazing, arguments over dirty socks dissolving into make-up sex that left them breathless and whole. But success has a way of testing foundations. Alex's big break came with the Elmwood redevelopment project. A commission to redesign the town's decaying downtown into a vibrant arts district, complete with a community theater. It's fate, he told Jamie, sketching elevations late into the night. The irony burned sweet, turning the place that cast him out into a haven for dreamers like them. He flew back for site visits, Dad tagging along awkwardly, offering gruff critiques on load-bearing walls. Not bad, kid. Sturdy. Jamie stayed behind, citing callbacks. But the calls grew sparse, the nights longer. One evening, Alex returned early from a client dinner to find the apartment dim, a half-empty wine bottle on the counter. Jamie emerged from the bedroom, hair tousled, Riley's leather jacket slung over the couch. The air thickened with cologne that wasn't his. What's going on? Alex's voice was steady, but his world tilted. Jamie ran a hand through his curls, eyes darting. It's nothing. Riley crashed here after rehearsal. We were just talking. The lie hung between them, brittle as glass. Alex's gaze flicked to the bedroom door, ajar just enough to reveal rumpled sheets. Talking, right? The betrayal uncoiled in his gut. Hot and vicious, not just the act, but the fracture of trust he'd built brick by brick. They fought like animals in the rain-slicked alley behind the building, words slicing deeper than fists. You think I don't get lonely too? Jamie shouted, tears mixing with the downpour. Additions chew me up. Alex, Riley gets it, he's been there. And I haven't? Alex roared back, the wind whipping his coat like a cape. I clawed my way here for us, for the life we scripted. But Jamie's face hardened. The boy who'd quoted poetry now echoing Dad's old lines. Maybe we're just too different now. You with your towers, me with my stages. The breakup was a slow bleed. Boxes packed in silence. Jamie's script of rivers and roads left on the nightstand like a suicide note. Alex threw himself into the Elmwood project, channeling the rage into blueprints that soared higher, greener. Months blurred into a haze of deadlines and bourbon neat, the skyline his only witness. The grand opening was set for Easter weekend, 5 years to the day since the forks clatter. Alex invited the family, Dad, now silver-haired and softer around the edges. Sarah, with her toddler in tow, even Uncle Ray, the black sheep who'd always slipped him extra allowance. It's not just a ribbon cutting, he told them over a tentative phone call. It's dinner. My treat. The venue was the heart of the new district, the River Center, a glass and steel pavilion with a stage that gleamed under recessed lights. Tables were set with white linens, centerpieces of forsythia nodding like old friends. Alex had hired a chef from Cincinnati, but the dessert, that was his, a towering apple crostata, flaky crust woven like a family quilt, filling spiced with cinnamon and the ghosts of Ohio orchards. For the pie we never finished, he'd whispered to the baker. As the family arrived, the air hummed with small talk and clinking glasses. Dad clapped him on the back, mumbling about the fancy digs. Sarah cooed over the architecture, little Emma tugging at her hem. They settled at the head table, the crostata arriving on silver platters, steam rising like incense. Alex stood, glass in hand, the room falling quiet. This place is not just buildings, it's second chances, roots that bend but don't break. His eyes swept the crowd, townies who'd shunned him, now applauding politely, then landed on his family. 5 years ago, around a table like this, I lost my home. But tonight, we're serving something new. He paused, fork poised over the pie, the tines catching the light. This dessert, it's for the boy who left with nothing but a bruised heart. For the man who built anyway. And for you, Dad. Mom's memory, Sarah. Because family isn't blood. It's the meals we choose to share, even when they stick in your throat. Dad's face crumpled, fork trembling as he cut a slice. The first bite was silence, then a choke, not of food, but of the words he'd swallowed for years. I was wrong, son. Scared. Of losing you to a world I didn't understand. Tears carved paths down his weathered cheeks, the room holding its breath. Alex knelt beside him, hand on his shoulder, the crostata forgotten. I never left, Dad. I just built a bigger table. Sarah joined them, Emma's sticky fingers linking the circle, and in that moment, under the pavilion's glow, the chasm bridged, not with perfection, but with the messy grace of forgiveness. Outside, the Easter moon hung low, full and forgiving, as laughter echoed into the night. Alex stepped onto the balcony, the city lights a constellation of what-ifs, and whispered to the stars, "We made it, not whole, perhaps, but human, flawed, fierce, and finally home."